Now, Home Depot is facing calls for a boycott after the billionaire founder revealed his support for President Donald Trump's re-election campaign. Now, over the weekend, 90-year-old founder Bernie Marcus had praised President Trump for having, quote, a businessman's common sense approach to most things. To which I say, what? What? Look, common sense ain't so common when it comes to the president. Anybody who's watched this show for any amount of time, any period of time throughout these segments where we examine how stupid the president is, knows that. Common sense ain't so common. Okay? Nonetheless, he says, oh, no, common sense. In fact, he also said this. Now, do I agree with every move that he makes? No. But the truth is, he has produced more than anybody else. He has. As if he's trying to convince us. No, he has. He really has. If we look at this country, I would say that we are better off today than we were 8 years ago or 6 years ago. Now, there's a reason that I put emphasis on we. Because the question is, who exactly is we? Again, Bernie Marcus is the billionaire founder. He's worth about $5.6 billion. Now, if we means you and your fellow billionaires, well, then you would be absolutely correct. As for the rest of the country, under Trump, and to be fair, under Obama as well, we still have stagnant wages, unaffordable health care, which is now worse under President Trump because of the sabotage of the Affordable Care Act. More debt, which we didn't have under Obama, by the way. He actually reduced the debt and reduced the deficit. And there are children in cages at the border. Just saying. I'm no stable genius here, right? But in reality, things aren't that much different than 6 or 8 years ago. Well, okay, I mean, let's be fair. At the beginning of President Obama's tenure, we were in the middle of an economic freefall created by George W. Bush. So things are different then, from then for sure. But as far as when Obama's term ended versus where we are at now, we're still kind of on the same trajectory. So I'm just saying, right? Now here's the thing, right? So Bernie Marcus had donated over about $7 million to Trump's 2016 campaign. Now, following the GOP tax cuts for the wealthy, which on average per year saves about, the 0.1%, about $130,000 a year. So now that's a significant chunk of money, right? Now, those tax cuts also saved the company hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes. That $7 million is leading to a huge return on investment. I mean, not just, of course, money-wise, but I think that's the main factor. But if you're somebody who's a conservative ideologue, which I believe Bernie Marcus is, well then, look at what you got. What else you got? A conservative Supreme Court that will last for generation. So, if you're a conservative, you're a billionaire, well then, of course, things are so much better for you now because of those tax cuts, deregulation, and, of course, conservative ascendancy. And, of course, look, Marcus, he's also donated to a lot of conservative causes. He's all into it, and he's been in politics for quite some time. In fact, according to Business Insider, for years, the billionaire, along with the early Home Depot backer Ken Langone, have functioned as mega donors for the Republican Party. And so we know who the people behind the Republican Party, hence why the Republican Party, is still largely behind Donald Trump. They go where the money goes. Now, the Republican Party basically exists as a money funneling scheme to the very wealthy. Billionaires paying millionaires to cut their own taxes. Now, this entire thing has led to, I believe, a well-intentioned boycott of Home Depot. Now, I say well-intentioned but also incorrect. But first, let me give you some tweets here from some very angry people who had shopped at Home Depot. Justifiably angry, of course. Steve Gaines says, we'll never ever shop at Home Depot. Tara Dublin says, hey, HGTV, this is another one of your sponsors. Please just go with Lowe's instead of Home Depot from now on because you're my self-care. Fun fact, Lowe's also works with Donald Trump, the founder of Lowe's, I should say, or founder or CEO, perhaps both. Leanne Kendall also said, cutting up my card, never shopping there again. Hashtag boycott Home Depot. We have Stacy Desroche says, never shopping Home Depot again. Kathy Gerardo says, considering the majority of their customers are immigrant workers and homeowners, no more Home Depot. And finally, Catherine G says, I know where I won't be shopping anymore. So, okay. So there's just a sampling. That hashtag is continuing, of course, to gain steam and a lot of responses. So now I'm a bit skeptical of this. Why is that? Well, for one, let me just say I get it. I don't actually shop at Home Depot. I never have. I'm not a fan of Ken Langone. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I'm not a fan of this Marcus guy, right? And look, I tend to look at the politics of the company as well as the owners, the people who are running the company before I do business. Now, that is me. I'm in the unique position of being able to do that and to give a crap. There are a lot of people that aren't able to do that. So now why am I skeptical of boycotts? Well, not in general. It really kind of depends. Now, if you're doing it, for example, to get somebody like Bill O'Reilly fired off Fox News for saying horrible things, and you want to hit the sponsors, right? Well, that's fine. Perfectly fine. That's one thing. Or if you want to boycott Amazon to do, public pressure to have them raise their wages, I can see that. Now, the Home Depot thing is, and I told you I don't shop there. This guy hasn't been part of the company since 2002. So, yes, he was a founder. So he created the company, co-founder Ken Langone. They're both terrible people. They're not part of the company anymore. Now, do they have stock? Maybe, I don't know. And that is a good question, right? But to me, this kind of reminds me of boycotting Starbucks. Not because of, the right-wing boycotts, which are hilarious, but Howard Schultz. Now, Howard Schultz is considering running in the 2020 election. And, the guy has terrible views. For the most part, he's definitely not a progressive. In fact, the whole purpose of him running is so that he doesn't have to pay more taxes for things like Medicare for all or free college. Okay. Now, here's the thing about that. Howard Schultz hasn't been running Starbucks for years either. So you want to boycott the company, well, that's not going to really impact him all that much. And that's kind of the whole point, right? So that's why I'm skeptical. If you're going for the company to try to hurt the founder who doesn't even have ties to the company anymore, well, then what are you actually doing? And so that's the problem that I have with boycotts. Again, super well-intentioned. I understand why you're doing it, and I get it. And there is a good chance that some of these companies are part of ALEC and support other horrendous things, and that's perfectly fine. Just, you got to know, right? You got to be, smart about boycotts so that it actually has the intended effect. And so that's it. I get the whole idea, and I agree with the sentiment, but at the same time, practical solutions. Now, that gets me to, okay, Jeff, well, what kind of solution do you have then if you don't like our boycott? Which, by the way, I didn't say that I didn't like your boycott. I'm just saying maybe we could do something constructive that actually does affect Trump and these billionaires. And what would that be? Getting involved in the presidential primaries. Donate to whatever your favorite candidate is. My favorite candidate in the presidential primary is Senator Bernie Sanders. Why? Well, he's got the best chance of beating Donald Trump, so that's immediately sticking it to him and sticking it to this Bernie Marcus guy, as well as Ken Langone. Because guess what? Bernie Sanders is going to raise their taxes. Nothing like hitting them in the pocketbook. That's the kind of action, right? Get involved. Get involved in the political process. And that's the way, like, and actually make sure that we can pass progressive policy instead of, letting them continue to pass conservative policy. Again, Bernie Sanders, he has the best chance of beating Donald Trump. New poll out today. He's actually one of the several Democrats that actually are polling ahead of Donald Trump. I think it was Harris, Buttigieg, and Warren are not beating Donald Trump in the polls. So that's really, really important. Despite the fact that in the primary, Elizabeth Warren has actually outraised Bernie Sanders by at least $1 million. So keep that in mind. The polling is actually with, I believe, Biden and Sanders still beating Donald Trump. So, again, new poll on that for that. Now, that said, you understand my skepticism, but make your own decision, right? Who you give or don't give your money to, well, that's your business, right? At the end of the day, and I'm not going to make a judgment one way or the other. I'm just saying here, I'm asking questions, and I'm saying maybe we should consider what we're doing, what effect our boycott is really going to have. Now, if you don't like Starbucks, you don't like Starbucks. There's plenty of reasons to like and not like Starbucks. So that's what you want to do, right? But if you think that doing a boycott to Starbucks is going to affect Howard Schultz and his bottom line at all, you unfortunately you're mistaken. So, but what we can all agree to, I believe, is at least that Bernie Marcus is kind of a douche. And anybody, I guess, related to Trump is the same way. And I hope that when Bernie Sanders or a true progressive wins in 2020, they get their ass taxed. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a patreon.com/TYTNation set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.